Seneca letter meaning after coronavirus. So, I was late to the game. I didn't become a stoic until 2017. But I did have a couple years to practice before coronavirus hits. And I am a doctor, so I kind of have a different emotional response to coronavirus, something that the likes of which I've never seen before. So I'm going back through and I'm rereading the Seneca letters, and it is much more impactful this time. I thought I would share it with you. Now, if you want a backstory of basics of Stoicism and everything, this isn't the place. We're just going to cover my impression of some of the greatest writings out there. What up, fam? Dr. James W. Stalkup, a.k.a. Jimmy Joe Coltrane. Let's get started. So this is the first letter that Seneca wrote. These letters were published in about 65 AD, and they were from Seneca to his friend Lucilius. And I'm not going to get into a big history lesson about it, but these letters contain some of the greatest sort of philosophical statements on Stoicism that have ever been produced. I'm going to jump right in. This is going to be kind of like the cliff notes of the Seneca letters. So first off, this whole letter is about saving time. It's about sort of a philosophy of managing your time, and it is fantastic. It is way more impactful now after COVID-19, after coronavirus, than it was previously. Why is that? I'm not sure. I think it's our own perception of time that has changed. So he opens up by telling Lucilius, gather your time. He then tells us certain moments are torn from us, and gives examples that some moments are gently removed, others glide beyond our reach. But the most disgraceful kind, now notice the use of that word, disgraceful kind, is lost to carelessness. So Seneca is rocking kind of the first ever documented sort of living with intent sort of dialogue here. He's telling Lucilius, you have to live with intent. I want you to watch the end of this video because this is very important. I know most of my videos are about job interviewing, but to me, this is something that you have to study and you have to know if you want to have success in your career. The Stoics in their careers are much more successful than non-Stoics. So the most disgraceful kind of loss is due to carelessness, people who were careless with their time. So these moments that are torn away, this really makes me think. Many moments are lost for me doing inane things. Going to the DMV to renew my tags, dealing with bills, preparing taxes, things that don't make memories and don't really further me as a person. There's no personal growth as I do any of these things. They're just absolutely necessary. And we do see a lot of times people who are very, very successful start employing people just to handle these. See, they value their time and they don't want to lose time to these kind of pursuits. You would be far better off having a glass of wine on a patio with a good friend than you would be sitting in the Department of Motor Vehicles. So some moments are torn from us and we can't do anything about it. But the moments that we can do something about, imagine those being torn away from us or just frittered away due to carelessness. The next part is very impactful. Seneca now talks about portions of our lives of which he says the greatest portion of our lives is lost while doing ill. So what does Seneca mean by this? The largest portion of our lives passes while we are doing ill. Well, unfortunately, that may be true. A lot of our lives passes while we're worried about the ongoings in the community or what other people are doing or what they have or the rights, the wrongs. All of these things that are sort of a weird sort of self-flagellation of where we think we should be in life. I don't think Seneca means robbing people or murdering them. I think Seneca means engaging the mind in pursuits that aren't really positive for the person as a whole. And Seneca then argues that a good portion passes while we're doing nothing at all. I don't know what doing nothing meant back then. I don't know what that looked like in 60 AD. I do know that I had an electronic addiction that I had to fight off, in which I would be on my cell phone for many hours a day, and I formed no memories through that time. What I did was I gathered a little bit of dopamine release in a manner in which app designers intended me to, thus habituating myself to that dopamine and keeping me addicted to that device. And my life passed before my eyes. I lost a lot of hours of my life doing that. And then Seneca lands the plane by saying, the whole of our life passes while we are doing that which is not the purpose. So what is the purpose? So for a Stoic, the purpose is do good for your fellow man. Maintain your virtue. Set forth your purpose. Set forth the place that you expect your ship to land, and then sail in that direction. But you can't be asleep at the wheel while you're doing it. In this time period, this is a big diversionary. It's a cataclysmic time for human history in which the rise of these nation states had come up, and warfare is just a constant occurrence. There's always something to talk about. There's always a distraction. There's stress in the daily lives every day. And I think about how coronavirus has imparted that same sort of environment on us. Now, it's not a battle. It's not a battle with soldiers and things like that. There's some horrible atrocities that happened back in these days. But we do have something that has impacted our way of life immeasurably. This is like nothing that we have ever seen before. And as I go back through this, boy, it is very easy for me to lose control of my emotions and think about all the time pre-coronavirus that I could have spent doing these things that I chose not to, that I didn't for whatever reason. Spend it on my phone. Spend it on Facebook, seeing who got likes on what. It's silly. No, let me correct that. And then Seneca comes back with this awesome kind of introspective little rhetorical question. What man places value on his time who reckons the worth of each day and realizes that he is dying daily? So the concept of death, this is something that as a Stoic kind of separates me from my friends a little bit. Very frequently we'll be having dinner, doing something fun, and my friends will say something and I'll say, well, this is my last night on earth, so I'm not really sweating it. Every night I die. And in the mornings I wake up and I have a bonus, or I may not wake up the following morning, and all of it is immaterial. It's very hard to condition yourself into this mindset, but it is possible to. So now he's going to back it up. We are mistaken when we look forward to death. Now, he doesn't mean like anticipate. He doesn't mean like looking forward to your birthday party. He is literally saying we are mistaken when we think that death is going to occur in the future. The major portion of death has already passed. Whatever years are behind us are already in death's hands. So this is sort of an interesting view of life that Seneca and a lot of the Stoics have. Life is not atomic in the sense that it is not inseparable, right? Like life is absolutely divisible into days, minutes, years, and you can look at what has passed as being in the hands of death. So, for example, if you're close to the end of life, why would you look forward and think that there is death when death has already occurred to you? Because your time is gone. And because we don't know with certainty when life will end, that death has already occurred to all of us. There are Stoic principles that are very hard to explain to people, and this is an analogy that I use. When something happens and then immediately I let go of it and I suppress and force myself not to reconsider it or do things like that. This can come up in business, this can come up in medical practice. And so I always say, imagine that I am on a bridge over a river. And the river is just gently flowing, little stream flowing under the bridge, and I have a beautiful leaf in my hand, or maybe it's an ugly leaf, but the leaf is immaterial. The quality of the leaf is in my hand. Now, that leaf may fall from my hand into the river, or a gust of wind could blow it away, or I could be preoccupied looking at birds or something like that, and that leaf falls onto the river, and that leaf then passes under the bridge. Now I look and I can see that leaf going down the river, but nothing that I do can affect it. I can no more change the course of that leaf than I could reverse the course of time itself. There is no gust of wind that is going to pick the leaf up off the water and bring it back to me. There's no force of nature that is going to reverse that river. The memory of the leaf may be pleasant, and there's nothing wrong with reconsidering the memory of the leaf, but that leaf is now outside of my influence. So, if the leaf is especially memorable and beautiful, I will hang on to that. But if the leaf was anything else, then that leaf is gone. Hold every hour in your grasp while we are postponing Life passes by. These are Seneca's words, not mine. Nothing is ours except time. Now, this really hits me. This hits me because I number my hours now, but there are many years when I didn't. And this is one of the reasons that on my blog, stoicstalkup.com, and on my YouTube channel, James Stalkup, I do want to impress to people the importance of at least familiarity with this. I would like someone to see it and refuse it, to see this philosophy and reject it and then go on with their lives rather than not knowing it. This is not a religion. This is an instruction manual for how to manage your thoughts and emotions, like a tractor manual would tell you how to fix a tractor. I had an old 1952 tractor, and I had a neighbor who would come over, an older man, he would come over and he would help me with the tractor by directly telling me what needed to happen with it. You see, he was to the tractor like Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and some of these Stoic philosophers are now to my thoughts and emotions. They have a very direct way of telling me how I can manage them. And this is the weird thing about Dave Ramsey. So Dave Ramsey, he's a financial guy and he's great and he tells people to get out of debt. And Dave Ramsey will consume decades of your life as you focus on debt and getting out of debt, and you internalize the entire process and it becomes sort of your reason for being. And you focus, and he said, name those dollars, name every dollar that comes in the door. But I believe that, for my opinion, our currency is actually time. And so you should name every hour. I don't think there's anything wrong with following the principles, but I think that getting wrapped up in anything that focuses on something that's tangible and utterly immaterial to you, if you focus all your time on that, that's a misapplication of time. It's no different than scrolling through Instagram. But once again, it's none of my business how people want to spend their time. I always thought that was odd, though. People look at money as being your currency, but your currency is your time and how you choose to use the moments that you are alive. Let's get back to Seneca. What fools these mortals be! They allow the cheapest things. Basically, he says, they allow, the actual words are, they allow the cheapest and most useless things, which can be easily replaced, to be charged in the reckoning. What he's saying is they get consumed by things that are frivolous. They're cheap. They're easily replaceable. There's a million different analogies we could use for having something that is replaceable that now is consuming your currency of time rather than your currency of money. And to me, boy, to me, this next part is the slam dunk coronavirus. This hits me right where I live. Time is the one loan which even a grateful recipient cannot repay. Giving someone your time is much more impactful because there is no way to repay it. That is a true gift. If I loan someone $100, they can pay that $100 back. But if I give you my time, that is the most precious gift that I could give. And this is where coronavirus has changed my life, because now I cannot give that time. There are people who are important to me who, because they're elders, I cannot give that time. I can give the time by a phone, I can give the time by a less rich form of communication, but I cannot give them that interpersonal time that was so valuable before. And I think of all the hours I wasted, all the times I went off and did something rather than spending, good, valuable time with people who are close to me. Time is a loan that cannot be repaid. Okay, so then Seneca is going to bring us back and say, I cannot tell you that I waste nothing, but I can tell you why I'm wasting. I can tell you the cause and the manner of the loss. And I can give you the reasons why I am a poor man. So he's saying, I'm not going to say I don't waste time, but I can tell you exactly where it's going. I can tell you what consumes it. And I can tell you the exact reasons that I'm poor. FYI, at this point in his life, Seneca wasn't poor. He's one of the wealthiest guys ever to live. What he's saying is he's poor because he does lose this time. Any time that you lose causes poverty in the mind of Seneca. And he's going to die here, I think, 2.5 years after this. So So yeah, he's kind of poor. He's kind of realizing his own mortality. Now, the one kind of blessing is back then stuff sort of got you without a prognosis of here's exactly how it's going to happen and here's what the CAT scan and MRI showed. So that may be a little bit of a blessing when we're looking at people discussing their own mortality in this era. Keep what is really yours, and you can't start too early. Seneca's pretty smart there. Keep what's really yours. He's saying keep your time, number those hours, and you can't start too early. This is one of the reasons why I want to share this message. It is too late to spare when you reach the dregs of the cask. You know, they had casks of wine, like these big barrels of wine. And then you would get to the dreg, and I think the dreg was like the last little bit of wine that was in there. And then the last part of the letter, I think, is very poignant, and it's a great place to close. Of that which remains, talking about the wine, of that which remains, the quantity is slight and the quality is vile. So this reminds me of the comedian's joke. I saw a comedian one time and he said something like, I smoke cigarettes and they said, smoking cigarettes will take 10 years off your life. And I said, yeah, but they're the worst ones. Basically, what Seneca is saying is it's important to master this early on, because if you master this in your final years of life, the hours that you have may not be as enjoyable. Now, we can see that. Like back in this era, it was severe, constant, unremitting pain when you had a painful condition, right? There weren't, opioid treatments and things like that to make you not experience pain. But this hits me a little bit after coronavirus, right? Because now there are limitations on people in their final years that they cannot go see their loved ones. I hope that everyone maintains good relations with their family members. You should. You shouldn't let beef arise with your family members. If you got any beef with your family members, you should do whatever you can to solve it. But imagine if there was someone who, at this point in their life wanted to resolve something with their family members, but they couldn't travel to see them. They couldn't see them because of health reasons or because they're in a high-risk category. There's a lot of things that we're dealing with now that we haven't had to face before. And even when it came to infectious diseases in this time, they did not treat them the way that we treat them, because we know about it primarily through the media. If you're a practicing doctor or nurse or something like that, you know that through your life, but everyone else has to rely on what they hear. And there's varying levels of risk tolerance. And then in our hearts, we feel that somehow we may be doing it wrong. Would Seneca wear a mask when he went out in public in 2020? I think he probably would. I don't think there's anything about the Stoics that lead me to think that they actively sought out suicide. Ultimately, of course, Seneca would die of suicide, but it was forced suicide under Emperor Nero in one of the scenes that is one of the most commonly depicted sort of deaths, death of Seneca. It's been sort of visualized by many different artists over the years. But I think he would have worn a mask. I think he would have followed all the rules. I don't know if I'm going to do 124 of these or if this is going to be the only one, but as I was reading this, I thought, it's something that might be worth discussing. Thanks for watching.